I woke up from a 9-hour spine surgery to 73 missed calls. I couldn't move my legs. I was trapped in a rigid, custom-molded plastic body brace. The anesthesia was still heavy in my bloodstream, making the sterile white lights of the intensive care unit blur and smear across my vision. My mouth tasted like medical gauze and dried blood. The nurse noticed my eyes opening. She walked over, checked my foreline, and quietly placed my phone on the plastic tray table across my lap. The screen was completely flooded with notifications. 73 missed calls. The 74th notification was a voicemail from my father. I pressed my numb finger against the glass to play it. I listened to his voice echo softly in the quiet hospital room. "We sold your condo to pay for your sister's wedding," his voice stated. He didn't sound apologetic. He sounded like he was reading a grocery list. "You were out cold, so we signed the papers for you. Don't worry about the packing, we hired movers." He took a slow, completely relaxed breath. "The wedding is just 3 weeks away, Molly. We needed the cash. Focus on your recovery." The voicemail ended. 425,000.
Gone.
Liquidated while my vertebrae were literally being fused together with titanium rods. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just looked at the heart monitor glowing next to my bed. I forced my pulse down to a flat, steady 60 beats per minute. I laid in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling tiles. They thought my temporary paralysis meant permanent submission. They thought breaking my spine made me a helpless casualty. They had no idea what was sitting inside my safety deposit box at Chase Bank. I don't know what time you're watching this, but tell me in the comments right now. What is the absolute most unhinged financial demand a family member has ever made of you? Because I spent a decade financing my family's survival, and their repayment was attempting to leave me homeless. 3 years ago, I paid exactly $12,500 out of my own checking account to bail out my sister Ivana's boutique marketing agency. I sacrificed 2 consecutive executive promotions at my architectural firm. I did it because I had to use my entire federal medical leave to physically bathe and care for my father after his bilateral knee replacement. I even handed over $2,800 every single month for 4 years just to keep my parents' vacation cabin out of foreclosure. I delayed buying my own home for nearly half a decade to keep a roof over their heads. If you have ever bankrupted your own future to fund the delusions of a toxic family member, hit the subscribe button right now. You need to learn how to stop the bleeding. While I was doing grueling pre-op physical therapy and fasting for 24 hours to prepare for my spinal fusion, Ivana and my mother were at the airport. They were flying first class to the Amalfi Coast to tour 60,000 destination wedding venues. They were drinking Prosecco at 30,000 feet while I was learning how to use a medical walker. I should have seen the legal framework of their betrayal coming. My father visited my apartment the week before my hospital admission. He sat on my sofa, scrolling through his iPad. He casually asked for the location of my physical property deed and requested my social security number. "Just to have your estate organized, Molly. Just in case," he said. He didn't even look up from his screen when he asked for the keys to my filing cabinet. But the real execution happened in the pre-op room, exactly 1 hour before the anesthesiologist put me under. My mother stood by my sterile hospital bed. She gently stroked my hair. She leaned down, smelling heavily of expensive floral perfume. "You just focus on surviving, sweetheart," she whispered. She slid a metal clipboard onto my lap. "Sign the medical power of attorney. Let mommy handle the terrifying paperwork if something goes wrong on the table." I took the black pen from her hand. I looked at the medical power of attorney document. I didn't argue. I just signed my name on the bottom line. I let her believe she had secured absolute, legally binding control over my life and my assets. I watched her slide the clipboard back into her designer tote bag with a satisfied smile. She didn't know that signature was entirely worthless.
Now.
I was awake. The surgery was over. And my father's voicemail was sitting in my inbox. I reached out with a trembling hand and pressed the red nurse call button. I calmly requested my personal overnight bag from the hospital closet. I unzipped the front pocket and pulled out my encrypted work laptop. I rested it carefully on my chest, adjusting the screen angle so the glare of the ICU lights wouldn't blind me. I opened my email application. I bypassed the primary inbox and went straight into my server's spam routing folder. I pulled the digital forensic trace of their theft. I found the DocuSign completion receipts. My father had clumsily tried to reroute the digital notifications away from my primary address. I opened the attached PDF files. I zoomed in on the notary seal at the bottom of the final page. I analyzed exactly how they executed the theft. My father didn't just use the limited medical power of attorney to sell a $425,000 condo. That is legally impossible. He had forged an entirely separate, fraudulent real estate power of attorney. He used the official notary stamp he lifted directly from my medical documents to legitimize the forged real estate transfer. They thought they were incredibly clever. They didn't use a standard, heavily regulated escrow agent. They used a shady, direct cash buyer loophole. It allowed them to bypass the initial holding account entirely. They had the buyer wire the $60,000 earnest money directly into my parents' personal checking account the absolute second the preliminary papers were signed. They wanted the liquid cash immediately to lock in the Italian wedding venues. But they didn't realize one critical, inescapable legal reality. Before the final closing could legally occur, before the title could physically change hands, the state still required a mandatory county deed search. I pulled the forged PDFs. I grabbed the wire transfer routing receipts. I locked down the fraudulent notary stamps in a secure cloud folder. My phone vibrated on the tray table. It was a text from my sister, Ivana. Dad said you're out of surgery. So relieved. Also, don't worry about the condo. It's going to a great family. Wedding is saved. Love you. I stared at the glowing text message. My spine throbbed with a deep, sickening pain. I opened the keyboard. I typed exactly 14 words. Still too medicated to talk. So happy the wedding is funded. Love you both. I hit send. I let them believe they were untouchable. I let them believe I was entirely neutralized. Empowered by that single text message. My mother and sister moved immediately. I watched their social media accounts update in real time. They wired the buyer's $60,000 earnest money directly to the Amalfi Coast wedding planners. They signed the catering contracts. They locked in the floral arrangements. They spent every single cent of the stolen money on non-refundable international deposits. I made one phone call. I didn't call the police. I didn't call my parents. I called my estate attorney. I gave him the exact tracking numbers of the forged DocuSign files. Let it ride, I told him. I just had to wait 14 days. That is exactly how long it takes for a state title underwriter to run a final county deed check on a commercial cash sale. 14 days. I laid in my hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, doing my physical therapy and waiting for the federal trap to snap shut. My mother and Ivana were standing in an exclusive, champagne-service bridal boutique in Manhattan. They were surrounded by floor-to-ceiling mirrors. My mother took a sip of champagne and handed her Platinum American Express card to the bridal attendant. She was paying for a $5,000 custom dress alteration. She was smiling. She felt like absolute royalty. I was sitting up in my sterile hospital bed. My spine was slowly fusing around the titanium hardware. My laptop was open on my tray table. It was day 14. The title underwriter at the state escrow company finally pulled the actual county deed records to finalize my parents' fraudulent sale. I watched my email inbox refresh. I waited for the automated flag from the county clerk. The title officer pulled the deed. He discovered the lethal discrepancy immediately. The condo was not legally owned by Molly Bryan. It was legally owned by the Molly Bryan Irrevocable Blind Trust. A forged power of attorney cannot override an irrevocable trust. A medical power of attorney cannot touch an irrevocable trust. It is a completely sealed, impenetrable legal fortress. The sale was completely void. But it didn't just void the contract. Because my parents had transmitted the forged closing documents electronically across state lines. And because they had accepted a $60,000 wire transfer under false pretenses. It constituted federal wire fraud. My mother's phone rang in the middle of the bridal boutique. It was the fraud division of the state title company. I wasn't there to see it, but Ivana posted a frantic, hysterical status update 20 minutes later. My mother's knees physically buckled. She dropped her crystal champagne flute. It shattered across the polished hardwood floor of the boutique. The title agent explained the reality of her situation with cold, bureaucratic precision. The sale was dead. The title was frozen. And she was now personally liable for the $60,000 in stolen earnest money. Money she had already wired to non-refundable wedding vendors in Italy. The bridal attendants and my sister stared in absolute horror. My mother began hyperventilating in the middle of the showroom. Her face completely drained of color. She was entirely humiliated in a high society setting, standing in a pile of broken glass. Back in my hospital room, it was dead silent. Then, it happened. My laptop chimed with a new email. Subject line, sale voided. Fraud investigation initiated. The legal timeline was brutally strict. The title company gave my parents exactly 48 hours. They had to refund the buyers $60,000 to the escrow account immediately. If the wire did not clear in 48 hours, the title company would formally submit the felony wire fraud package to the FBI. 3 months have passed since my surgery. I am back in my unsold condo. I am walking slowly through my living room with a sleek metal cane. I trace my fingers over the fabric of my untouched furniture. The condo is perfectly safe. My parents narrowly avoided federal prison. They had to completely liquidate their entire retirement accounts to pay back the $60,000 in 48 hours. They took massive early withdrawal penalties. They are financially ruined. The Italian wedding was canceled. The deposits were lost forever. The silence in this house is heavy now. The family is permanently gone. I saved my home. I just had to become a monster to do it. Tell me in the comments. If you were lying paralyzed in that hospital bed, would you have stopped the sale immediately? Or let them commit the felony first? Hit the subscribe button if you agree that the most dangerous weapon a woman can wield is letting a narcissist think they've won. Subscribe to the channel. We don't just cut toxic family off. We let them finance their own destruction. Next week, I am breaking down how a wife used a simple Wi-Fi router to legally seize her cheating husband's corporate shares. Until then, remember, they thought breaking my spine meant I couldn't fight back. They forgot my trust was irrevocable. Silence. Hard cut.